When Eilat Mazar realized she discovered an ancient structure near Jerusalem, she turned to the Bible to help explain what she found.
This new discovery supports the biblical accounts of King David and his son Solomon.
King Solomon's tomb was never meant to be found. For thousands of years, it remained a myth, buried deep beneath the ancient Zemlya of Jerusalem, hidden under war, time, and silence. Empires searched. Explorers vanished. Every expedition ended the same way. Nothing. When archaeologist Eilat Mazar uncovered a strange structure in the heart of the ancient city, it didn't look extraordinary at first. Just stone, just ruins. But then, the pattern emerged. A pattern that matched descriptions linked to King Solomon himself. This wasn't just another discovery. It was a direct collision between archaeology and scripture, something many believed was impossible. And what lies beneath may be far more disturbing than a royal tomb. Because the real question isn't did they find Solomon's tomb? The real question is, what else did they uncover with it? Before we reveal the truth, make sure to subscribe and stay with us, because what comes next might change history forever. Something older, something hidden, something history may have tried to erase. And if this is real, it could rewrite everything we know about human civilization. The legend of Solomon's lost tomb was never just a story, it was a warning. For centuries, people dug beneath the hills of Jerusalem, chasing whispers of a king buried with unimaginable wealth. A king whose name still echoes through time, King Solomon. But Solomon wasn't remembered only for riches. He was power. He was mystery. Ascending the throne after King David, he didn't just inherit a kingdom, he reshaped it. Trade routes expanded across continents, gold flooded into his empire, and at its center rose a structure unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. The first temple. Built over 7 years, it shimmered with cedar from Lebanon, walls layered in gold, and stones cut so precisely they seemed almost impossible. And then there was his mind. Stories of Solomon's wisdom spread like wildfire. 2 women, 1 child, 1 impossible decision. When he proposed dividing the baby, it wasn't cruelty. It was truth. Only the real mother would be willing to give the child up, to save it. In that moment, Solomon became more than a king. He became a legend. Even the powerful Queen of Sheba traveled across deserts to test him, bringing gold, spices, and riddles meant to break him. She left in silence, outmatched. His empire stretched beyond imagination. Ships sailed to distant lands like Ophir, returning with ivory, rare animals, and treasures that historians still struggle to explain. And yet, for all his power, all his wealth, all his glory, one question was never answered. Where is his tomb? No monument, no inscription, no trace. Some believed it lay beneath the sacred grounds of the Temple Mount. Others spoke of hidden chambers, sealed caves, secrets buried on purpose, never meant to be found. Over time, the search faded. Too many failures, too many dead ends. Even experts stopped looking. Until something changed. A discovery, small, almost insignificant, cracked open a mystery buried for 3,000 years. Not a grand entrance, not a golden door. Just a fracture in the earth, barely visible after a storm. But that crack led to something no one expected, because what they found wasn't just a tomb. It was a message, a silent warning, buried deep in time, now forcing its way back into the light. And the deeper they went, the clearer it became. This was never lost by accident. It was hidden. By the 21st century, the search for Solomon's tomb was considered over. Most historians and archaeologists had moved on, believing the mystery would never be solved. But everything changed when Dr. Emily Carter, an archaeologist known for studying ancient texts, discovered something unusual deep inside the archives of Jerusalem. While examining old Hebrew tax records, she noticed a strange pattern, payments being sent to a location that didn't officially exist. This hidden place was believed to be somewhere near the city of David, a site so deeply buried in history that it had almost been erased completely. Determined to investigate, her team began scanning the rugged slopes of Silwan using advanced ground-penetrating radar. The terrain was harsh and uncooperative, filled with jagged limestone and unstable soil. Progress was slow, and constant delays made the work even harder. But despite everything, they continued digging day after day, until a sudden rainstorm changed everything. The heavy rain loosened the hillside, revealing a shallow dip in the ground that immediately caught their attention. At first, it didn't seem like much, but when they scanned beneath that spot, the radar lit up instantly. What they saw wasn't natural. It was a network of tunnels, carved deep into the rock nearly 13 meters below the surface. These weren't random structures. They were carefully designed, with false entrances and misleading paths, clearly built to confuse anyone trying to find their way inside. The deeper they looked, the more it became clear that this was no ordinary excavation. Dr. Carter spent nights studying ancient symbols and fragments of text, slowly piecing together clues left behind thousands of years ago. These markings didn't guide explorers. They were meant to mislead them. Still, one pattern stood out, pointing toward a hidden entrance that was cleverly concealed in plain sight. Even with this discovery, most of the structure remained buried. What they had uncovered so far was only a small part of something much larger. Then came the moment that truly changed everything. It wasn't technology or data, but an old story, one passed down by local shepherds. They spoke of a hill that glowed under moonlight and walls that shimmered like stars. Standing on that very hillside, Dr. Carter and her team felt something different. The silence, the stillness, it all felt too deliberate, as if the ground itself was hiding something important. Soon after, they found it, a massive stone slab buried deep beneath the earth. This wasn't just another obstacle, it was a seal, a barrier designed to protect whatever lay behind it. Opening it wasn't easy. It wasn't meant to be. Every movement felt risky, as if one wrong step could collapse everything around them. But when they finally broke through, it didn't feel like they were just uncovering history. It felt like they had awakened something that had been hidden for thousands of years, and whatever was waiting on the other side was never meant to be found. Hidden within the narrow tunnel walls were traps, fake paths, sudden dead ends, and sections designed to collapse if disturbed. This wasn't just ancient construction, it was a defense system built with incredible intelligence. Whoever designed it expected grave robbers and made sure none would succeed. As the ground creaked beneath their boots, Dr. Emily Carter focused on a series of ancient Hebrew markings carved near the entrance. There were 7 lines, 7 symbols, forming a pattern linked to the 7-year construction of Solomon's first temple. This wasn't decoration, it was a code. Using laser tools and 3D scanners, the team carefully mapped every inch of the tunnel, treating it like a live explosive device. The tension was constant. One wrong move could trigger a collapse and bury them alive. For 3 straight days, they adjusted hidden mechanisms, aligned stone components, and worked in complete silence as the tunnel grew darker and quieter. It felt as if the mountain itself was watching them. Then suddenly, everything shifted. A sharp snap echoed, followed by a deep rumble. Dust fell from above as the massive stone slab slowly began to move, revealing a narrow pitch-black opening. No one spoke. No one moved. Cold air drifted out, carrying the silence of thousands of years. Dr. Carter raised her hand, signaling the team to stay still. Cameras rolled as they recorded the moment. This wasn't just a discovery, it was the first breath of a story lost to time. But what lay beyond that darkness was still unknown, and the next step would change everything. As they stepped inside, the beam of a flashlight struck something, and instantly, the entire team froze. Gold, everywhere. The silence deepened as the reality sank in. They weren't chasing a legend anymore, they were standing inside it. Deep beneath the city of David, inside a sealed chamber, untouched for centuries, treasure lay scattered across the room. Golden vessels lined the walls, engraved with ancient markings, glowing as if they had just been crafted. The air was thick with the scent of time, spices, resins, something both earthy and strangely fresh. At the far end of the chamber stood a seven-branched menorah, perfect in form, heavy, and unmistakably real. Its design matched descriptions tied to King Solomon's temple. But this wasn't a replica. This could be original, and it was only the beginning. Around them were fragments of silk, hinting at trade routes reaching as far as India, ivory carvings suggesting connections with African kingdoms, and small jewelry boxes filled with gemstones, emeralds, rubies, and lapis lazuli. Each object told a story of power, wealth, and a kingdom that once dominated the ancient world. But something felt off. Some artifacts carried symbols no one could identify. Others seemed out of place, almost newer in style. Questions began to rise. Could these belong to Rehoboam, Solomon's son, or another ruler who added to the hidden cache? The excitement was overwhelming, but so was the uncertainty. In a chamber like this, doubt echoed just as loudly as discovery. Still, the team remained careful. Every surface was scanned, every object documented. Nothing was touched without precision, because they all understood one thing. This chamber, as incredible as it was, didn't feel like the final answer. It felt like the beginning of something much bigger. The menorah alone had the power to rewrite everything known about the first temple. But no one was celebrating, because they hadn't come for treasure, they had come for a tomb. And this place didn't feel like one. Still, everyone could sense it. This chamber wasn't the end of the story. It was only the first layer. Whatever lay deeper had been sealed away for a reason. The gold was breathtaking, but it wasn't what held their attention. It was the writing on the walls. Still recovering from the shock of the treasure chamber, Dr. Emily Carter and her team turned their focus to something far more unusual. Hidden among what they had already uncovered were artifacts unlike anything found in modern Israel in decades. Torchlight revealed a dense cluster of carvings etched into the stone. These weren't simple decorations. They seemed intentional, structured, precise, almost alive with meaning. At the center was a star-shaped seal, sharp and deliberate, nearly identical to descriptions found in ancient accounts linked to King Solomon. Not just a royal emblem, but something legend described as a symbol tied to authority and hidden knowledge. And then it became stranger. The carvings extended outward in geometric patterns, perfect lines, spirals, and angles that looked less like art and more like engineering. One archaeologist quietly remarked that it felt like mathematics carved into stone. Not simple temple measurements, but something far more advanced than expected for the 10th century BCE. Even Dr. Carter couldn't hide her reaction. Half joking, she said, "We came looking for a tomb and found Solomon's calculus notebook." Then came the tablets, stacked carefully in a corner, as if waiting to be discovered, were clay tablets inscribed with dense Hebrew text. Some were heavily eroded, others remarkably intact. One tablet described temple dimensions that closely matched passages from 1 Kings, but another was different. Its language broke structure. It didn't read like a record. It read like a puzzle, a coded message pointing towards something called a key, connected to hidden knowledge. No one said it out loud, but the implication was impossible to ignore. References that echoed the legendary Key of Solomon, long dismissed as myth. And then came the moment that changed everything. A chest, hidden inside a narrow wall recess, almost completely overlooked. Small, but heavy in appearance. Its surface was sealed with metal latches and engraved with the same star symbol found across the chamber. There were no hinges, no visible lock, just silence. The team gathered around it without speaking. No one dared to touch it. The air itself felt different, as if the room was waiting for a decision that couldn't be undone. Was this the final secret? Could it point towards something even greater? Perhaps the Ark of the Covenant? Or was it designed to do exactly what it was doing now? Create more questions than answers. And then, just when the mystery seemed to peak, someone noticed something in the carvings, a symbol that didn't belong. Not in style, not in meaning, not in time. That's when everything shifted, because carved into the stone was a line that didn't feel like history at all. It felt like a message, as if it was spoken directly from the past. We are going to continue, and very soon, we are going to find something really very important and very special over there. The room fell silent. It wasn't treasure that stunned them anymore. It was the realization that someone, thousands of years ago, had anticipated their arrival. And just as Dr. Carter traced the final markings along the eastern wall, they understood something chilling. This tomb wasn't just hiding history. It was waiting for them. 5 lines in ancient Hebrew, worn smooth by time, yet still sharp enough to send a chill through the room. The inscription read, "May wisdom guide my hand, as stars guide sailors." It hit differently, not just because of its poetic tone, but because it felt personal, like a voice speaking across 3,000 years. Almost as if King Solomon himself had left behind a message meant to survive silence, war, and time. Back at base camp, everything exploded into chaos. Laptops lit up, phones rang non-stop. Images of the inscription were sent across continents within minutes. And by sunrise over Jerusalem, the academic world was already in flames. Some experts called it the smoking gun. They pointed to the language, the location, the carving style, and the dating of the chamber, roughly 970 to 931 BCE, the era of Solomon's reign. To them, everything aligned. The menorah fragments, the trade artifacts, the architectural patterns, it all pointed toward one conclusion. The man behind the myth had finally been found. But others weren't convinced. Critics immediately pushed back, dissecting every detail. They questioned the authenticity of the inscription, calling the script too refined, too deliberate. Some even noted faint nearby markings that resembled later Persian influences, suggesting the message could have been added centuries after Solomon's time, perhaps an imitation rather than a revelation. Inside academic halls and online forums, the debate spiraled into chaos. Professors argued in live panels. Journals delayed publication. Headlines split the world in two. Solomon found versus ancient hoax exposed. And at the center of it all stood Dr. Emily Carter, calm, steady, unmoved. "We didn't set out to find a king," she said quietly, "but the evidence kept building. If that's not worth investigating, what is?" But the inscription now felt heavier than ever. Not just words carved in stone, but a possible glimpse into a ruler wrestling with power, looking to the stars for guidance, and maybe leaving behind the only first-person trace of his existence. Still, one question refused to disappear. If this carving was real, then what was locked behind the final sealed chamber? Because the name of Solomon had already shaken the world. But what came next would silence it completely. Just days later, the discovery deepened. Hidden near the back of the chamber, beneath layers of dust and stone, the team uncovered another inscription. This time, even more shocking. Carefully carved ancient Hebrew text describing a royal visit around 950 BCE from the Queen of Sheba. The moment her name was translated, everything stopped. This wasn't just a reference. It matched the exact narrative found in the Book of 1 Kings and echoed traditions preserved in multiple faiths, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Scholars from different religions reacted instantly. Rabbis examined Torah passages. Islamic scholars compared verses from surah accounts. Christian theologians revisited biblical records. For a brief moment, history and faith seemed to align in the same direction. But certainty didn't last long. Skeptics immediately raised doubts. Some argued the carving style didn't perfectly match the 10th century BCE. Others suggested it may have been added later, either as tribute, reinterpretation, or even deliberate forgery. Tensions spread quickly. Online debates turned hostile. Academic panels turned political. Religious interpretations clashed, each group trying to defend its own reading of history. And beneath all the noise, something deeper emerged. Because the inscription didn't just describe a visit, it suggested something far more complex. Trade, diplomacy, shared knowledge between two ancient powers, a connection between Solomon's kingdom and Sheba that felt less like myth and more like recorded history. But that raised an even bigger question. If this alliance was real, how much of what we call scripture is actually history? And just when the argument reached its peak, the team found something hidden inside a sealed alcove behind the Sheba inscription. No gold, no crown, no relic, something far more unsettling. And it was never meant to be opened. A king's seal had been unearthed. But it wasn't another carving or scroll. It was something far more personal. Small, yet strangely heavy in meaning. Hidden in the corner of the chamber, behind a cracked stone table untouched for centuries, the team found a gold ring. Thick, solid, and unmistakably royal. At first, it looked like just another forgotten ornament buried in time. But when the flashlight hit its surface, everything changed. Carved into the ring was a six-pointed star. Not modern, not polished. Not symbolic in the way people know today. This was rough, ancient, and hand-cut into gold. Yet its shape bore an undeniable resemblance to what would later become the Star of David. The room went silent. Later lab analysis confirmed the metallurgy matched the 10th century BCE, aligning with the era of King Solomon. And that changed everything. Because suddenly, the question wasn't what they had found, but whose it was. Was this Solomon's personal seal, a royal signet used to stamp decrees, trade agreements, or letters to foreign rulers like the Queen of Sheba? Or something even more powerful, a direct trace of his authority preserved in gold? Then the thought hit the team. This wasn't just a ring, it was a signature. But doubt quickly followed. Some experts warned that similar symbols had appeared in later periods, especially around the reign of Hezekiah, and that the Star of David didn't become widely associated with Jewish identity until centuries later. So was this truly Solomon's mark, or a later addition misread by time? The debate intensified immediately. In the lab, researchers carefully studied the ring under microscopes. Every scratch, every groove was analyzed with extreme caution. The artifact was handled in controlled conditions, sealed, stabilized, and never directly touched. One mistake could erase irreplaceable history. But the risk felt worth it, because if this ring truly belonged to Solomon, it would be the closest humanity had ever come to touching the hand that once ruled ancient Israel. And just when the team thought they had reached the peak of discovery, something shifted. A faint sound echoed through the chamber, stone moving, deep underground, like something awakening. Behind the ring's resting place, there was another wall, and behind that wall, something no one was prepared for. Back inside, one of the researchers gently tested a replica instrument based on the wall markings. The sound was faint, imperfect, but enough to silence the entire room. Because these weren't random notes. They felt like instructions, not just for music, but for something deeper. Still, doubts remained. Was this truly from the time of King Solomon, or just a later addition shaped by legend? Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. The chamber no longer felt like a tomb. It felt alive. Every symbol was scanned, every carving documented. No one dared touch the original stone. One mistake could erase thousands of years of history. But beneath the musical carvings, something else waited. A sealed section of stone. No marks, no symbols, no explanation, just a direction, pointing deeper, towards something no one had ever reached. And possibly the final truth. There was no body, no bones, no proof of burial, only silence, heavier than anything before it. So the question remains, did they find Solomon's tomb, or the entrance to something far greater? If you enjoyed this mystery, don't forget to like and subscribe, because the next discovery may change everything we know.